Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to cover one of the most important data management process or stage in a project environment. This is what is called data analysis. There are so many ways to analyze data that has been collected. For example, you look at variances. You also look at the trends in terms of how the information has been moving over the specified period. You also look at frequency of distribution and so on and so forth. So it's quite important that we cover this in this particular video, and I encourage you to watch this video all the way up to the end to understand how data is actually analyzed in a project environment. So let's move on. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Oscar Mbira. I'm a certified project and program manager. In this video, I'm going to cover data processing in a project environment, which is one of the most important activities that you can ever expect in a project environment. So let's move on. In a project environment, when you're starting a project and you're executing a project, you're monitoring a project all the way up to closure, there is normally a lot of data that is coming in. I can give you a good example. It's like when you're running any business, you always collect some data to do with your business. The same also applies to project management. So in project management, as you initiate your project, execute a project, and then close your project, you collect a lot of information all the way along the journey. And one mistake I've seen so many project managers making is not to take advantage of that information. They collect, they make decisions, they move on, that's it. I can tell you, managing data, you might want to call it data, it's the same thing. Managing data in a project environment is very, very critical. It's very, very important, and you should consider that whether you're a project manager or you're even just a project member or even a project team manager. The information that you collect is very important for your decisions. So there are basically 4 stages that you take through the data that you have in a project environment. So the first one is data gathering. We are going to cover a number of items or ways to gather data. For example, we talk of brainstorming as an example of data gathering. We are also talking of, say, interviews. You can also interview people for you to gather information. You can also send questionnaires, and you can also do some surveys just to make sure that at least you're able to gather information. So data gathering, we are going to cover on that particular aspect. Then the second item is data analysis. So, after gathering the data, you also need to analyze it. You need to get more information, or you want to transform it from data, which is raw data, to information. That is also very, very important. You normally make decisions based on information. Say, for example, you want to analyze for the last week, how is the team performing in terms of, say, defect resolution, assuming it's a software company or it's a software project. How is the team performing in terms of attending to requirements from the user, resolving issues coming from the user? So that is what is called trend analysis. You also want to look at variations, say, for example, cost variation from last month to this month. So this is all part of data analysis. Then the third one is data representation. How do you show the information that you've been collecting over time, whether it's a week, it's a month, or it's a year, pertaining to that project? How do you represent it? Especially when it comes to stakeholders or people who are not involved in the day-to-day running of the project. How do you represent that information? So we are going to look at histograms, for example, which shows the distribution of the information. We are also going to look at a number of them so that we appreciate what exactly does it mean when you say want to represent data that is coming from the project. Then the last one, which is very, very critical, is all these stages. You are gathering data, you are analyzing it, you are also representing it. You now need to make a decision. Should we increase the budget? Should we increase the resources? Should we reduce the resources? Are we supposed to adjust our schedule? And so on and so forth. So that is why it's very important that, especially if you're a project manager, you make what are called data-driven decisions in a project environment. That is very, very important. And this is what we are going to cover in this particular video. It's going to be quite interesting, and I would encourage you to watch this video all the way up to the end. So let's move on one by one. We are going to look at these 4 stages: data analysis, data gathering, data representation, and then decision making. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button, so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help this channel to grow. It will also help this channel to produce more videos like this one. If you want to dive deeper into understanding what is project management, I've also created for you a very comprehensive ebook, which you can also access using the link in the description below. So you could be asking, Oscar, why does data matter in a project environment? I'm going to explain to you. Data management in a project environment is very, very important. And one of them that you have to appreciate is decision making. Don't make decisions based on opinions or based on bias. Always try to make sure that your decisions, they are based on the data that you are collecting when either before starting the project, during the project, and even when you're closing the project. You cannot make a decision based on personal opinions in a project. Always try to understand, especially from all the stakeholders from the project team, what information is available for you to make that decision. So it matters because you need to make a decision. Number 2, why it matters to have data management or understanding in a project environment is also on risk management. You also need to manage risk in a project. But how do you manage risk if you don't understand what is going on? If you don't collect the information that is required for you to understand probably the impact of the risk, the probability of the risk, and also the proximity of the risk. So it's quite important that you appreciate and understand that you use that data for decision making, you use that data for risk management. If you want to understand more about risk management, I've created a video on risk management. You can also watch it on my channel. I'll also leave a link in the description below. Then the next one is you want your stakeholders to trust you. Stakeholders, they don't normally trust you based on your opinions. They also want you to back up your opinions with some data. Next, with some information, some numbers, okay? So it's quite important that you also collect this information in a project environment. I've seen some scenarios where the information is scattered all over. You find someone has got an Excel sheet sitting somewhere, someone has got a Word document sitting somewhere, someone has got a plan of activities sitting somewhere. So this is where we encourage you to have the project management information system, PMIS. If you want to explore some of these tools that are existing, I'm going to leave a link in the description below. You can also check some of these tools where the information is actually centralized and it becomes very easy for you to manage information in a project environment. Then you also need to use the data for continuous improvement. Some they want to call it lessons learned. You cannot learn something until and unless you understand what was it, what caused it, how can you improve it, what are you learning, and how can you apply it into other projects or into the organization as a whole. So data management in environment is also very important because you also use it for continuous learning, you also use it for lessons learned. You're asking, what do you mean by continuous improvement? So when you are running a project, there are certain repetitive phases that you might face in a project environment. You do it and then you do it again, you do it and then you do it again. Say for example, you are doing construction project. You want to build a 20-story building. So after finishing the first floor, you repeat the same thing for the second floor, you repeat the same thing for the third floor. But there are certain lessons that you are picking from that process. So this is where I'm saying, those lessons that you are picking, you need a way to manage them. You need a way to gather them and then improve the next stage and so on and so forth. In a project environment, when you have all the data, it's easier for you to control the scope. It's easier for you to control the costs. It's easier for you to also control the schedule. So data management in a project environment is very important because you also control the scope, you also control the schedule as well as the budget. You cannot control the budget without gathering information on how much has been spent for the previous phases, how much you intend to spend for the next phases. So data gathering is very important, and this is where it becomes very important for you to make decisions. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button, so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help this channel to grow. It will also help this channel to produce more videos like this one. So in this section of the video, we're going to cover data analysis in a project environment. So remember, the first stage is to gather the information, which is trying to answer the question, what do we have, or what do we know? Now, in data analysis, we are now looking at what does it mean, okay? You're analyzing the data. You received it, you have gathered it through brainstorming. You've also gathered through interviews, for example, surveys, focus groups, checklists, and so on and so forth. So what does it mean? So this is what we are going to cover in this particular video. And I would encourage you to watch it all the way up to the end. So analyzing collected data in a project environment is very, very important. Why is it important? You want to understand what it means, whatever you've gathered. Say, for example, you have gathered that you have used 70% of your plant resources. So what does it mean? Does it mean you have to increase it? Does it mean you underestimated? Is there some lesson that you have to learn from that process? So we're going to go through analysis. We are going to examine the data that has been given or collected. We are going to transform that data. And we're also going to model to discover more information or insights from the data. So that's the purpose of data analysis in a project environment. So we're basically going to look at 4 ways. The first one is alternative analysis, the root cause analysis. We are also going to look at variance analysis. We are also going to look at trend analysis. So let us go through them one by one to understand what is this data analysis that we're doing. What does it mean? How do we analyze data in a project environment? So when it comes to alternative analysis of data in a project environment, is you're trying to look at different options that are available, and also you want to do some evaluation based on some criteria that you have for those options before you make a final decision. So I can give you a good example of the options that you can look at. For example, you can look at the costs. If I take option A, how much is it going to cost me? If I take option B, how much is it going to cost me? If I'm going to take option C, how much is it going to cost me? You can also look at, say, for example, time to deploy. Say, for example, it's a software solution. If I was going to deploy it using this option, is it going to take me 2 months, 2 weeks, 1 hour, or whatever? If I was going to deploy using option C, option D, for example, how long is it going to take me? You can also look at customization. If I want to make this specific to this customer, specific to this stakeholder, if I take option A, how much or how long is it going to take? You can also look at maintenance, for example. Also, even the risk level. If I take option A, what is the risk level involved? If I take option B, what is the risk level involved? If I take option C, what is the risk level involved? Then at the end of the day, using those the criteria that you were using for evaluation, you are now able to make a decision, or you are now able to make a recommendation as to what is your final recommendation, to which option should be taken. And probably you might want to document additional information as to why you decided to go for that option. So alternative analysis is very, very important when it comes to data analysis in a project. Don't make the mistake I've seen with some other projects, project managers. They just make a decision straight away. There's no looking at option A, option B, option C, assuming it's available. They don't even look at it. They'll just tell you, we're going to take option B. So it's quite important that you look at all the parameters, the criteria you're going to use for evaluation, and then you make a decision in terms of which option are you going to take. In a project environment, you normally face challenges. There could be challenges, there could be issues, there could be problems. Throughout my experience with project management, I've not gone through any project where you don't face challenges, you don't face problems or issues. So the main important item when it comes to data analysis in a project environment is to understand what exactly is causing the issue. so that you don't focus or you don't fix symptoms, you fix the root cause of the issue. So there's a technique called root cause analysis in a project environment. So root cause analysis, you are trying to understand what exactly is causing the challenge, what exactly is causing the problem, what exactly is causing this issue to come about. So once you understand that there could be a lot of outcomes from that, probably you might learn a specific lesson, which you can also apply to the next phases of the project or to the next project in an organization. Or it's a lesson that you can also even share with the organization as a whole to be applied organization-wide. So you want to pick up the lessons, number one. Number two, you also want to prevent that issue or that challenge to come again in the project, current project, or even future projects. So there are so many items which you can use for root cause analysis. And one of them is what is called Ishikawa diagram, or in general, RCA, root cause analysis diagram, where you look at possible categories that can cause the problem. And then to the right, you have your issues. Let me show you. So let me give you a good example on how to apply this root cause analysis in a project environment. I'm going to give you an example where a construction project was delayed. So some of the questions that you have to ask to analyze the root cause is, for example, why was the project delayed? As an example, you might get answers like because of the foundation was poor or it was late. Okay. You can even ask the question, why was the foundation poor? You know, after every question, you ask the next one, until you get to the bottom cause of the issue. Then you are told that it was because the concrete supplier delivered 3 days late. Then you ask an additional question again, why did the supplier deliver late? You are being told because the order was placed with insufficient lead time. You can also ask another question, why was the order placed late? Then you are told because the procurement approval took longer than planned. Then the other one is, why did approval take long? Because the approval workflow was unclear. So the root cause becomes very clear to you. It was the approval process that caused all this construction project to be delayed. So you don't focus on symptoms. You actually focus on the root cause of the problem. So we normally use an Ishikawa diagram to represent the root cause analysis. So when you're executing a project from initiation all the way up to closure, as you face challenges or as some of these risks becomes or they materialize, becomes an issue, you will always have some variances, which means you have planned something during your planning stage, and then during your execution you face some challenges. Say something was supposed to take 10 days, it's now taking 15 days, which means obviously there's a variance from what was planned for 10 days from actually what is the reality, which is 15 days. The same also applies to schedule. A schedule can change. The same applies to cost. The cost can change. The same also even applies to scope. So there's also another technique for data analysis called variance analysis, which means you want to see the difference between what was planned and what exactly is happening within the project. It's normally done during the monitoring and control phase or stage of a project, which is normally done from the beginning all the way up to the end. You want to compare what you initially had planned against what actually is happening. And we normally use the end value management. I know you might be asking, Oscar, what is end value management? I'm going to create an additional video on end value management. You can also watch it on my channel. But basically, what we are talking about here is what was planned in the project and what exactly has been executed in the project. So there is a way to calculate these variations or variance. When it comes to, there's a way to calculate this variation. I'm going to start with schedule variation. If you want to find what is the schedule variance, you subtract the planned value, monetary value, from the end value. And if you want to see how are you doing in terms of schedule, are you behind schedule, ahead of schedule, 10% or so, you also look at what is called schedule performance index, which is also the end value divided by the planned value. Then the other variance that you have is also to do with cost, where you have the end value minus your actual cost. And then if you want to see the cost performance index, you also have your end value divided by the actual cost. So variance analysis is also very important when it comes to project management analysis. Then the next technique when it comes to analysis in a project environment, or data analysis in a project environment, is to look at trend analysis. So trend, you are looking at the performance or the information gathered over time in a project to get more insights. Are you going up in terms of budget? Are you going down? Are you not moving? And what does it mean? What decision should you make? So there are quite a number of answers that you might need when it comes to trend analysis. Say, for example, you want, is our defect rate increasing or decreasing? This is part of trend analysis. It might be decreasing or increasing. So what does it mean? Does it mean the rate of resolution is good, or is it very slow? Or even, is the project cost performance index, is it worse than last week? Remember, the trend analysis, you're comparing over a specific period. Last week, which means you're comparing on a daily basis, or last month, or even last year. And then you also, our stakeholders' satisfaction scores trending. Is it going up? Is it good? And so on and so forth. Or our sprints velocity improving? This is now talking about agile methodology. The velocity is what the team can do at any particular time in an agile environment. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? What does it mean? And then also, do we have the budget burn rate or overrun in terms of budget? So trend analysis is also another very important technique that you can use in a project. I always use it in my project environment. Just try to understand what exactly can be corrected, or what exactly can be prevented in future when you're analyzing this trend. So it's quite important that in a project environment, you do this trend analysis all the way up to the end. If you want me to create more videos based on what we have covered in this video, or maybe there's a concept or there's an idea which is not yet clear to you, you can reach out to me, or you can let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.